Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Sweet Spot. So happy to be with you today, previewing the 2025 hospitality show. Yes, it is that time of year. This year, we are headed out to Denver in October. We're going to talk all about it with a very frequent guest, a Sweet Spot veteran at this point, Alexi Khajavi, Questex president, hospitality and real estate. Alexi, thank you so much for being on The Sweet Spot once again with us.
Right. Great to be here.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the hospitality show, but it is crazy to think that this, we had you back on the podcast in 2023 when this was first announced. And here we are today. This is 3 years strong. This is the third year going into it. I wanted to start with you. We've talked about, your journey. We've talked about your role, some of the mentors along the way. I'd love to just hear from you, Alexi. If we could go back to that podcast in 2023, what do you think the biggest change in hospitality that you've seen over these last few years?
Well, I'd say it's half and half. I mean, on one hand, I think we were absolutely correct and spot on in that hotel profitability and the complexity in hotel operations would only increase. And would be in terms of achieving profitability would become harder and more challenging. And I think we were right in that assessment, and we continue to see a lot of challenges in the space. And now we're starting to turn into negative territory in terms of operating performance with RevPAR, ADRs, and occupancy, which is normal, right? I mean, this is a cyclical industry. And it's an industry that is dependent on the macro economy. So, we've had an incredible run. But I think, looking back in 2023, we absolutely got that right. That, it was only going to become increasingly more complicated and challenging. And that therefore profits would be also challenged in turn. What I don't think we anticipated was how massively AI would start to impact not only our industry, but our world. And it is increasingly becoming. I think it's going to have a much more deeper impact on in a shorter time than what we anticipated back in 2023. And not all of that, by the way, is negative. There's a lot of positive opportunities that come from AI, but I think we're all trying to figure it out right now. And the hospitality industry can be both a beneficiary, but will certainly and undoubtedly be impacted by it. But those are two things that I think of. One we got right, and one I think we didn't anticipate the enormity of the impact of AI.
Yeah, or the acceleration. I mean, in a industry whose technology adoption is typically slower than most, we're up there right now. I mean, or at least hoteliers and the market feels like hospitality is trying to embrace this maybe differently than other technological fads, right? And I think, it's really, really cool to see. You ever want to explain the complexity of hospitality to someone who doesn't know hospitality? Go to the hospitality show and see all the vendors that are on that showcase list. And you're going to see everything over there. And I think that's why hoteliers, I do, but hoteliers love the hospitality show because it brings everyone to one specific place. And the challenging operations that you mentioned, Alexi, continue to kind of stack up, the hats that GMs continue to put on and wear. It's all in one place and at one location. And with this location being in Denver, right? So you launch the hospitality show in Vegas. I don't think, probably a great place to launch any type of show. Moved to San Antonio last year, right beside the Riverwalk. Here we are in 2025 in Denver, making its debut in Colorado. What are you most excited about for this location? What do you think it brings to the hospitality show?
Well, it's Colorado has a huge and vibrant ecosystem of hospitality companies. All ranging from obviously Vail and the ski resort infrastructure that's throughout Colorado. But you've got some incredible management companies that are based there, developers, and technology. There's a thriving ecosystem across the hospitality space, and all of those categories and brands that are within each of those, are supporting THS and getting that local support as we did in Vegas and San Antonio is critical to the success. So, I mean, bringing it to Denver, which is a great, downtown, a lot of new hotels have opened up just in the last 2-3 years. So a really vibrant, hotel stock that's going to be, where our guests and our delegates and our sponsors and exhibitors will all be staying. And we're bringing the city into the experience. So, we've got, as always, we've got an incredible 2 nights of evening receptions where we bring the industry together, from senior leaders to to GMs and students and everything in between. But it's just a great town. There's great restaurants, great sports teams. We're there, while both the NBA and the NFL are in action. And there's a lot of that hospitality ecosystem that we're bringing into experiences, whether that be for the entire delegation or for guests just to take out clients, meet each other and network and so forth. We've got the University of Denver, which has a vibrant hospitality program also that we're supporting and is supporting the hospitality show, as well as Visit Denver and the Chamber of Hotels and the CVB. So, Denver is a great place to be. It's a good time of year to be there in October. It's typically not too hot, and before the snow starts to fall. But look, at the end of the day, I mean, the local economy and the state economy really does appreciate the impact that tourism and hospitality delivers, to Colorado and the businesses and the labor and employment that depend on that. So, we've got a lot of support from the local market that is great, and that will be, there in full force. And it's just a great town, right? I mean, it's right downtown. Like San Antonio, you can walk to bars, restaurants in your hotel. You can go catch a game with the Nuggets. And if you come in early on Sunday, I even think the Broncos are playing. So it should be a good time, in addition to all the education and the networking and the inspiration that will be happening at the convention center.
Yeah, I've seen firsthand what you're talking about, Alexi, about bringing that local flair. Some of the things you and your team did last year in San Antonio, a live mariachi band. It's so cool. That was the Dia de los Muertos was going on as well as the World Series. You brought a little bit of that flair. So
Right.
Can't wait to see what you got planned this year. We're excited for it. Along with the obviously local community that has a big impact on this show, you have a great partnership with AHLA. And, obviously we've had a lot of AHLA members kind of giving us some quarterly check-ins, making sure the hoteliers are up to date with the most important topics, trends, and issues out there that they advocate for. Can you talk about maybe that partnership with AHLA and how it's kind of helped shape and grow this event?
Yeah, I mean, look, AHLA, the American Hotel and Lodging Association, is the preeminent association and membership community for the hotel and hospitality sector. We started this in partnership with AHLA. We were both aligned around our commitment to not only the industry and the brands within the industry, but in terms of the importance of connecting the ecosystem with the products and the solutions that go, hand in hand in addressing that operational complexity that we talked about, but more importantly, in driving hotel profits. And the better off we are from an operational perspective, the better experience the guest has, the more the guest will return and continue to support the hospitality industry. And the win-win is that the rest of the value chain, benefits as well. So the more profits that the fragmentation of the industry, the brands don't own the bricks, and there's typically a third party or often a third party operator in the middle of that is operating that operating business on behalf of the owners under a flag for the brand. I mean, you can tell just from the business model, we're a bit more complex. We're a bit more nuanced than a traditional piece of commercial real estate. So, which makes it very fascinating, right? And then you add in this guest into the middle of that, and all of those guest, expectations are changing as well. So all of that happening, AHLA has a deep understanding of the industry, of the guest, of the operators. But more importantly, they've got a commitment to improving that ecosystem and that value chain. And so our interests are 100% aligned around that. It's why we launched the hospitality show, is because the hospitality show is really the only event in the industry that brings both senior leadership as well as the decision makers in procurement, operations, general managers, food and beverage directors, revenue managers, sales and marketing, all across HR and finance. Those individuals that are all making decisions, from senior level CEOs of the brands and some of the largest investment funds and groups, to everyone in between. And that's a really unique thing for hospitality, in that many other industries, whether it be construction or technology or plastics or military, all have at least one event, which is what we call a tentpole event, where the best, the brightest, the most qualified, and the most active in that industry all gather once a year. And, hospitality didn't have that. And the preeminent, foremost, association for the U.S. lodging industry didn't have that. And so that really was, for us, a white space in the industry and in the landscape of all the events that are out there. AHLA is a perfect partner. They're the right partner. They are heavily invested in this, and we make every decision, and all throughout the process and the planning, the post event. AHLA and Questex are side by side in it. So it really does put the stamp of approval, and it's why, frankly, we get the largest collection of CEOs and brands and operators and advisors all there with those owner operators. So it's a great opportunity, and it's a great partnership, and we're delighted to have them on board. And it's a 2 decades long partnership, so it's only just beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a truly remarkable, unique event, and what better place or maybe authority to go to for key industry issues than the advocacy group that is AHLA, pushing some of these important issues that are so critical to our business. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the programming that you and your team put together for this event is so intentional that it can speak to your C-level executives all the way down to your front line, even sometimes students, what you were mentioning there. Yeah. And you've really you've kind of gone through the process, Alexi, with me on past episodes about talking about how you've incorporated and listened to guest feedback. And I think for events that are going to sustain, grow, and be successful, you obviously have to get that feedback from attendees on what's missing, what do you like, where did we miss the mark, to improve. And you've kind of gave us the behind the scenes of that process for you and your team. We saw some new additions to this year's show, the recharge zone, interactive zone, F&B zone. Can you talk about maybe these new components of the show and how it's addressed maybe some of the guest feedback you were hearing?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest feedback points and topics that we heard was personalization continues to be both an opportunity and a challenge for hoteliers, and it's much more on demand by the guest. Right, the guest is choosing hospitality in large part because they want to be treated with a human, personalized, authentic service. But behind that, it's technology that really drives that. And so the reality is that of the 50 some odd thousand hotels that are in the U.S., the overwhelming majority of each of those hotels' tech stacks is already outdated. So a huge amount of transformation needs to take place across the hospitality sector in terms of the back end tech, and that back end tech is what's going to fuel that human experience, that personalized delivery of service and experience and memorable experiences, basically, that fuel the industry. So that's been a really strong driving point as to how do you use technology effectively to empower humans, not to replace the human component of hospitality. And then looking at, to your point, the departments within a hotel, F&B, revenue management, wellness, as well as looking at the startups that are coming into the space, because the tech industry, in and of itself, looks at hospitality, to the point you made earlier, Ryan, as being a late bloomer, a late adopter of technology, whereas many other markets, healthcare and so forth, have already invested heavily and have already incorporated a lot of technology into their infrastructure. So we've got a long way to go, which is you could look at it as being a negative, but it's actually a positive. We're also launching not launching, but continuing with the GM, so the General Manager Summit and Luncheon that starts on Sunday. We've got the GM Awards, so we're actually bringing over 500 GMs there, which is really one of the the most I'd say rewarding parts of THS, because GMs are the unsung hero of the hospitality industry. We tend to iconify chefs, and we leave GMs sort of unrecognized. But we're changing that. Again, that's an HLA initiative, which we're bringing into the hospitality show. But we're also looking at cities and how the hospitality industry can work more effectively with their local mayors, their local councils, and their state local legislations. We've got Walter Eisenberg, CEO of Sage Hospitality Group, which is a local Denver, Colorado-based a business, which will be starting us off on Sunday. We also have Mehul Patel, who's a managing director of Newcrest, one of the most well-known. He'll be speaking with Heather Altieri, who's the vice president of Avendra International, one of the largest procurement companies that we have. And then on Sunday as well, we've got Chris Barton, which for those of you that don't know, but probably use the technology like I do every day, was the founder of Shazam. And you may be wondering, why we're bringing in the founder of Shazam, and it's because Chris identified this human need, which is when we all hear that song on the radio. You're driving in the car, you don't know what it is, but you desperately need to know what that song is because you love it or you hate it, whatever it may be. And he used technology to fulfill a very human need, and it becomes a very authentic and a very sentimental moment when you can capture what that song is or what that tune is. So again, we're trying to change the aperture of just looking at hospitality through the various departments or the various sort of technologies that go into a hotel tech stack. We have all that. We've got over 500 exhibitors, but we're trying to give people the opportunity to really think about how other industries are using technology and are looking creatively to solve human needs and human wants, and then to create these memorable experiences. So it's a mix of both information and inspiration. And honestly, Ryan, one of the things that's been fueling us this year, based off of your question and what the feedback has been, is that in an age of information, ignorance is a choice, and there's no shortage of information and knowledge out there. So not being knowledgeable about what those products and solutions are to driving hotel profitability is frankly a choice. And so the folks that are making the choice to attend the hospitality show and lean in are making that choice to improve their operations, improve their businesses, and improve their own profitability, which is a win-win for the entire industry.
There you go. That if you ever need that, you can punch your ticket right there. That is a great selling point to get people inspired to go to this hospitality show. But you're right. I mean, I still remember the inspiring words of Admiral McRaven in 2023 in Vegas, Aaron Andrews and Jose Andres last year. Incredible keynote speakers, and obviously Jose had some and very impactful stories about hospitality. But I think all of the lessons learned, you've mentioned it on this podcast with me, Alexi, they make for great icebreakers and conversations and networking, and things that you can apply to different pieces of your business, which is so eclectic and complex, as we've talked about. And one of those topics that continues to be prioritized that we hear, personalization is certainly one of them. Sustainability, always a hot topic. Questex has its own initiative, Quest Zero. Can you share a little bit about that program and how you see sustainability evolving into the hospitality show programming this year?
Yeah, our sustainability in that Quest Zero, as you mentioned, that is our not only our initiative, but it's our promise to ourselves and our customers, both exhibitors and sponsors, as well as the delegates, that we will repurpose, recycle, and reduce all of the product, the services that we ourselves use to put into and to put on an event of the scale that the hospitality show does. And look, that's often harder than it should be, because it doesn't exist the products or the solutions to solve something, to reduce or to recycle. But in terms of signage, in terms of carpet, in terms of lighting and food waste, those are all areas which we address directly at the hospitality show, and we reduce as well as reuse. So the food, for example, in conjunction with the convention center, we're very very much focused on reducing that food waste. And where we do have overages of food, and we always do, we want to have our delegates well fed and imbibed in hospitality. We then contribute it and donate it to local charities and centers to support the needy. So all of those things, frankly, are replicating what many hotels are doing, and programs that already exist in hospitality. And so at the very minimum, we are a reflection of what the hospitality industry is doing in terms of its corporate social responsibility. And look, it's a journey. I would be the first one to say that we're not perfect, but we're on that pathway to improving all of those areas. And we continue to work with industry associations as well as AHLA to find ways to reduce and recycle and frankly just minimize the impact and the footprint that putting on an event of this scale does. But yeah, it's very important to us, and our partners and our customers also support it as well. And they do their own initiatives alongside THS as well. So yeah, it's a very integral part of not only Questex but of the hospitality show as well.
Well, and it helps that travelers, guests, they're asking for this stuff, right? This is more than just, this is a traveler trend right now of people asking for sustainable practices. Corporations looking at a eco budget rather than how can we make our travel a little bit more eco-friendly. So it's really, really cool to see that momentum. And I think this is a show like the hospitality show, when you have different brands come together, different ideas come together. This is when we can help move that industry forward, especially in important issues like that again, our guests are asking for, they're craving, and they're certainly prioritizing in their travel when they're searching for travel. So you mentioned it before, Alexi, GM of the Year awards. One of my personal favorite parts of the hospitality show, incredible stories, incredible people. How do we, one of the things we probably would still tell each other in 2023 is we're still battling the staffing shortage to a degree, right? I think we're always going to have that. But, how do we get some more inspiring stories like these incredible ones that we hear out from the hospitality show into the ears and minds of, this younger generation to think of, hospitality as a career, and not just a summer job that you fall into in college and then fall in love with after that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big issue, and there isn't a silver bullet, solution to it. But to your point, I mean, it starts by celebrating, those general managers that, most of them, frankly, have come through the ranks of the operational side of the business, right? I mean, you don't just start as a general manager. You start, doing the night audit. You start as a bell cap. You start in housekeeping. You start in the kitchen, and really, in an industry and frankly an economy that does struggle to create career paths and opportunities to start here and end up there with higher earning power, higher authority, greater responsibility. I mean, that's the American dream, right then and there, right? So not to be romantic or hyperbolic, but the hospitality industry is hook, line, and sinker directly linked to what we all sort of anecdotally refer to as that American dream, is that you can work your way up and you can move into management and increase your income and your lifestyle, and that's what we all want, right? So celebrating those GMs is paramount to one, why the hospitality show exists, but second, to your point, it's just very, very special. To see those stories, to hear those stories, and to engage with those general managers from across the country is a very special moment. And we do many touch points and different variations of it. We've got the awards, we've got the summit, we've got the luncheon, and then of course they're walking through the expo floor. They're at the networking reception, so they're a core part of the audience. And the CEOs, I like to tell the story. The past 2 years, and I would expect it again this year. Jeff Bellotti, CEO of Wyndham, and others for that matter. I don't want to just say it was Jeff, but he's right at the front row. He's clapping on GMs from other brands because he knows, and he absolutely is connected in his own career. Similar story, knows that it's those individuals which really do deliver the experience. But more importantly, it's ensuring that those individuals get recognized and that they become lessons for others, whether they're in the industry today or are looking for a career. That you have an opportunity in hospitality to grow your career and grow your own, your lifestyle and your opportunities. Which then goes to the other point, which is then connecting it to young people and young folks looking to enter a career at college or at a vocational school or coming out of high school. We have a perception as an industry, a misconception, if you will, that we are, a summer job, we're low paying, and we're low skilled, and nothing could be further from the truth, because it doesn't tell the whole truth, right? And so, I think we are like our partnership with the University of Denver. We are, connecting this with the school, trying to help the school to promote the incredible program that they have at the university. And David Corson, the dean there, is on our advisory board, the planning committee for THS. So we're going to be bringing students there from that program, but others as well. And really, our job here is to encourage, greater promotion and understanding that the industry is a great industry to be in, and it provides a lot of opportunities. But again, you've got to show it from real life people, right? You've got to show that a GM started here and ended up there, and has a great opportunity and a great career to go even higher. And I just don't know many other industries that you can do that. I mean, nothing wrong with them, but typically, you need a 4-year degree, and you then have to start at the top, and you may end up somewhere near the top or hopefully at the top. But this is really one that, you can start in any department and really then move your way around and find your place. And it doesn't mean that you always have to end up as a GM or the CEO, but there's plenty of opportunities. And as we've seen, this is a human delivered, this is a human powered industry. So even with AI coming on board, it's just going to open up more opportunities for people to choose a career that they love and have a great opportunity to support themselves and their families, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great, pitch to a young professional earlier in their hospitality career. And maybe I'll go on the other side and maybe speak to, the veteran hospitality leaders out there that might be listening to this. Also be open to mentorship of these young professionals, to show them, share your story, how this can turn into a career. And to speak to the technology side, Alexi, that you were talking about, this younger generation coming in, they're gonna see some of these processes that we might still have in hospitality and say, oh, what are we doing here, right? They might look at it as old technology, and it could be an opportunity to freshen up what you're doing. Definitely keep a listening ear, because they're going to have expectations of what they want in their career. So hopefully we see more of that.
Ryan, I don't think you could be more correct in that statement. I mean, we tend to think of it as the business needs to upgrade and needs to modernize. But the reality is that it's still, our employees and our colleagues are going to be using these platforms and these technologies. And if your CSR, your booking engine, your global distribution system, your guest management system, your revenue management system, whatever, all of these platforms that are all within that hotel tech stack, if they still look like something from, a 1984, a platform or, a user experience, it's failed already, right? It doesn't matter how good the system is, that you can't get the users to use them. And as we want to attract these younger talent, our platforms and the user experience part of that platform, in order to improve, reduce the data silos, in order to improve the API connections between all these systems talking to each other, and ultimately to really truly provide a personalized experience in hospitality, which can drive revenue, drive loyalty, i.e., drive money and profits. The platforms have to be modern, they have to be user friendly, and they're not in many cases. And so, the startup zone that we've launched is really, in many cases, in many ways, a curation of those new technologies, which are not only improving, the solving a problem in the industry, but many of them, to your point, are actually trying to create a better user experience within the platform themselves, so that the users, the employees, and the colleagues that we have in the industry enjoy using it, which becomes, again, it's a bit of a win-win there.
Yeah, and if any time, Alexi, it's ripe for disruption right now, with everything that's going on. So, to be at that startup zone that you were talking about, to learn, be open to these new technologies that maybe a decade ago, your organization wasn't ready to make that shift. This is the time to do it, because if you're not here, you could be already, 5 years behind. And, speaking of kind of where we're at right now, I want to give you a crazy hypothetical, but if you started the hospitality show, let's say in the 90s, probably be very different to where starting it in 2023. And the role that digital marketing plays, we started the Sweet Spot as a digital marketing podcast. Can you talk to, I remember when I first saw the hospitality show social media page come up, and now here you are, you got thousands of followers on social media. Talk to us about how digital marketing has played a role in really growing this show right now.
Yeah. Marketing and demand generation capabilities in hospitality are woefully missing. Some of it is self-inflicted, but for others, for hotels with limited staff, a strategic marketing plan is frankly impossible, right? Or extremely challenging. There's only so much you can do with a limited amount of staff. Sales, talking about COVID again, to your point earlier on, sales and marketing staffs were the first ones that were let go during the pandemic, and many of them have still not been staffed back up. So we lost this tranche of sales and marketing commercial know-how across the industry, and we're still suffering from that today. So, technology at its very core, hospitality technology exists to help hotels drive profitable demand through an omni-channel marketing plan. So, essentially, how do you build a plan to target the right audiences on the right channel at the right time with the right price? Because the reality of dynamic pricing, which is in hospitality, is, you and I can be staying on the same floor, on the same dates, in the same room type, and yet have paid completely different rates through different channels at different times. And that can't be underestimated. The complexity of that to get it right. And it's not just changing it willy-nilly, right? But it's about optimizing the right channel to the right audience at the right time with the right price. And the right price is different for you at a different time on a different channel, right? So it's highly, highly, highly complex. And if you don't get it right, you're going to be leaving money on the table. And if you do get it right, you will be outperforming your market set exponentially. So the campaigns have to be thoughtfully tracked, and they have to be thoughtfully optimized, and they have to achieve a measurable return on investment, which is the other bit, right? Because how do you actually attribute what you did and what you spent or the resources you allocated to the return on that investment? Again, achievable, doable within the technology that's out there in the marketplace today that didn't exist, frankly, 5 years ago, and didn't exist certainly 10 years ago, but exists today. But again, it's about connecting that product or that solution to the right person, making sure that the labor and that the talent exists to use that properly. Because look, I mean, take metasearch or SEO programs. Those are marketing strategies that drive real results for a hotel to get seen on the most popular internet search engines influencing travelers. We've been talking about this for 15, 20 years. But talk about social media. My kids don't go to the website. They don't go to Google to influence our vacation plans, and they very much influence our vacation plans. They go to TikTok and they go to Instagram. And I can't tell you how many hotels that are in destinations that we were going to, because we already knew we were going to, Cabo San Lucas. But if they didn't have a social media plan and execution and optimization and attribution plan, well, they're not going to get found. I don't care whether you got 5 stars, you got 1 star, whether your TripAdvisor is good, bad, sideways. Those are things that I search for, but they're not things that our kids and the younger generation search for, which frankly have either influence my spend, our generation spend, or they themselves are getting old enough to make their own purchasing decisions. So sales and marketing is a really critical area for the hospitality show. And we've built that up over the last 3 years. We have a partnership with HSMAI. So we bring their sales and marketing experts, and we're bringing more of them this year, and we're connecting them to more products and solutions that drive that demand generation, and marketing capabilities. Because frankly, and I get no joy out of saying this, we still market hotels like it was 1994, to your point.
Yeah, the complexity spills over from the operational. I mean, you talked about how challenging it can be right now on an operational standpoint. Part of that operations is your sales and marketing, and the digital landscape is changing at a very fast pace. And if you are fully not optimized on social media, like you're talking about, and those places are hard. We still think in old attribution models when it comes to social media and reviews sometimes, of saying, how many bookings is this post going to get me? How many bookings am I going to get from this 5-star review? And you can't think like that. You have to think about, your digital presence, your they always call it the online billboard, to try to make that translation to something physical. But if you don't have that upkept, exactly like you were saying, Alexi, with your parallel there, you're not going to be found, and you're certainly not going to be chosen by the travelers once they get there.
And the data is siloed still in the industry, right? Because of the fragmentation of the industry itself, because of the fragmentation of many of the technology platforms within the tech stack not communicating with each other, all of that data is siloed. And, what that does is, again, we call ourselves a hospitality industry, but, how many times have you showed up to a hotel that you stay at often? I mean, this is me, and I will not name the hotel, but I stay there so much that I know who they are. And oftentimes they forget me because they're seeing thousands of more people than, I've got an advantage in that human to human. Occasionally, a couple of them, because we've made a connection, will remember me. Hello, Mr. Khajavi, nice to see you again. But those that don't, the fact that I've stayed there hundreds of times now, will say, is this your first time staying with us? And, there's nothing that could have filled a moment after a plane ride and a taxi, and you're tired, to say, lovely to see you again, Mr. Khajavi. breakfast is still served. I know you like, croissants and a donut and a coffee. That creates a human connection, and that is what hospitality is. And I'm not asking. In this case, it's the human that is actually performing better than the data, the technology, because a couple of the front desk staff remember me, and I can tell you, just that hello and that welcome back drives loyalty. But the fact that it happens so intermittently, and that there isn't a data, and there is data, and there's a solution for it. But the fact that in 2025, we still haven't connected to that. And I am a part of the loyalty plan. I stay there all the time. I know them. I know the ownership group. I know the third party management. So again, I'm not your normal John Doe coming off the street. I didn't book through, an OTA. I did everything right, quote unquote, right for the hotel to know me, and not have to remember me, right? To have a pop-up come and say, Mr. Khajavi stayed with you last May, and he stayed with you for 4 nights, and he got dry cleaning 5 times. The power of that, and those are the things that we can do, and those are the products and the solutions and the experts that are doing it right, that owners, operators, and GMs and food and beverage directors and heads of housekeeping are going to meet and are going to connect with in Denver at the hospitality show. Because until we get people together that are a part of that and that know what's working, what's not working, how to make it work, we'll never solve it, right? And we've got to solve this, because if we don't solve it, well, now we're just a commodity. And we're really losing out on the art of hospitality. And if we achieve the art of hospitality, I can promise you the profits and the loyalty and the demand will be much, much higher than what it currently is today. And that's not a bad thing.
Absolutely. And, loyalty will go through the roof, like you talked about, customer retention. It's a snowball effect, and it's events like the hospitality show that are going to get us closer to being there. So if you're listening to this, it's the place to be. Let me make sure I get the dates right on this. October 26th to 28th. In Denver. We will be there covering it again, bring you all the insights, exclusive interviews that we can. Alexi, I want to thank you for your time. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Ryan, it is great to see you again, and looking forward to seeing you in Denver, and looking forward to seeing everybody else as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you in Denver. Have a great rest of your summer and into your fall, and we'll talk to you next time on The Sweet Spot.